Greetings and welcome, everybody, to this week's episode of UC Weekly News. I'm your host, David Danto, and I have a good friend of mine on the program this week who's going to talk to us about a company that's been in this industry for a really long time. And Jerry, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell everybody who you are and what you do in the industry.
Sure. Thanks, David. It's great to see you. Thanks for making the time. Yeah, so I'm Jerry Pompa, Senior Vice President and General Manager for Compunetix. Compunetix, we've been in business for many, many years, focused, as you say, and the UC space, but maybe a little differently than sort of the average company that you've heard of all of your in this business.
Yeah, I mean, one of the conversations you and I, and again, we've known each other for a really long time. So the conversations we've had are about how many of your clients are clients you can't talk to me about unless you have to kill me first.
Right.
You got a lot of three-letter firms that you're working with, I assume.
We do. Yeah. So yeah, Compunetix, when the company was founded in 1968, over 55 years ago, we were focused 100% in the federal government. When I joined 20 years later, so now I'm with the company over 35 years, we were doing 100% federal government, and it's through some of the UC solutions that moved us more into the commercial market.
So at a very, very high level, Compunetix is an organization that offers collaboration services. You have bridging services, you have meeting services, you have clients that support that. Is that the best summary, or do you have a better one than that?
A little bit better. I hate to contradict someone like yourself, David, but you're right. I shouldn't say anything you said was wrong, but there's really two companies here. The company I am with is Compunetix. We have a sister company called Chorus Call, right? And everything you just described in terms of services, Chorus Call is in fact sort of a classic service provider, and I can talk a little bit more about them in the UC space, and that's voice, video, web collaboration, webcasting, streaming, as well as operator assisted conferencing, if you will. Compunetix, on the other hand, is very much a technology focused company. We provide them with the technology, but we also provide the entire industry with similar technology. So we're a product company, and then we have some other aspects of our business, manufacturing, which you probably don't know a lot about. And in terms of product, one of our largest markets, as you've already mentioned, probably a growing market, probably 40% of the business that we're doing is U.S. federal government, a lot of DoD, a lot of intelligence agencies. Yes.
Okay, so let's take a step back for a second, and just spend, I don't know, a minute or two talking about the company's founder, a brilliant gentleman who I know passed away just a couple of years ago. Tell us a little bit about George, what you knew about him and what he was like, just briefly.
Sure. Giorgio, I mean, as you know, the best one word is brilliance, as you pointed out. He was, a pioneer. He was ahead of his time. As a quintessential entrepreneur, founded the company, as I mentioned, many years ago. He passed away in 22. He had clear visions for these businesses, and he was always focused. It sounds cliche, but he was always very focused on being the best in whatever segment that we operated in, right? So whether it was our product business in the voice, video, web collaboration space, or whether it was providing conferencing services through Chorus Call or manufacturing, in the case of manufacturing, always high reliability, high quality, made in America, of course, which gives us some unique market positioning. And so, that was always one of his visions, is always to be the best that we can. And again, it sounds cliche, but that was him. And he was a visionary. He saw a lot in this market before it happened, and we positioned ourselves to capture it. And he was a hard worker. He was an engineer like myself. My background is software engineering. I started at Compunetix 36 years ago, developing software here, and obviously moved away from that many years ago. But Giorgio, his personal hobby, and it sounds crazy, was exploring esoteric mathematical problems, including factorization of very large integers, which is sort of the foundation of encryption technology today, and had some patents on that. So, yeah, I mean, it was I can't say enough about him. I personally learned a lot over those many years, and we carry on that mission. We have a new company president, for both corporations, and we're continuing to drive forward.
Okay, great. And I did want to make sure that we had a mention of Giorgio in there,
Sure.
although I can't pronounce his last name. Why don't you do it?
Corlupi.
Okay, good. I'm glad. I didn't want to get that wrong. So in my very long career and in your very long career, we have seen the progression of bridging software, hardware from big chunks of iron and DSPs into something that's software based. It's a tremendous transition of how this worked. And I don't know if you want to spend a minute or so talking about how your company went through that transition. I assume essentially you're there now, but it was a completely fundamental shift for how processing was done of these very, rich video signals.
Yeah, absolutely. So, it's been exciting and interesting from a technology point of view from you. Personally, after I finished up my graduate degrees, I was with Westinghouse for a number of years working in robotics software, and then I moved into Compunetix, and we were the very first firm to develop an all digital, large scale digital conferencing solution. And you use the acronym DSPs, digital signal process, of course. Many years ago in the 90s, that was the only way to do it, right?
It's really hard to think of the 90s as many years ago, but go on.
But video conferencing really couldn't be done without those kinds of specialized, dedicated media servers for that application. And as you point out, that things have moved. And yes, now it's all software based, but software doesn't run on air molecules, right? I mean, software does run on servers. And in fact, it's not really talked about a lot, but people like, with the advent of the latest generation of servers over these past many years and GPUs, we've been able to move the capabilities off of dedicated kind of appliances. But one thing that a lot of people forget is that people like Amazon and Microsoft, I mean, they actually have specialized servers in their cloud. Right. So they are doing custom hardware development. I know people that are working for them doing that. And they're doing, hardware accelerators, which are not part of standard servers that you can get sort of off the shelf with GPUs and the graphic processing capability that allows it. So yes, it's moved to the cloud. It's opened up, the elasticity that it provides, the redundancy, reliability. I mean, the scalability that type of solution provides, and the ubiquity of having something that can run in those types of environments, is tremendous. It's changed the market. There's no question. So that technology has really opened things up for sure.
Okay, and you mentioned, say the secret word. I wish I had a duck that I could have fall down. You mentioned the word cloud. And cloud is an interesting concept. In the 90s and the early 2000s, probably at least for the last 15 or so years, people have been talking about moving compute out to the cloud. You no longer need to have this in your data center. As you mentioned, Microsoft and Amazon and all the, a lot of data moving out there. So you're buying processing as you need it. You can scale up and down as you need it. It's really cool. And what we're starting to see, more so this year than last, and it's a growing thing, is this concept, and I'm going to use the term that's used in the industry, of repatriation for a number of different reasons. First of all, it isn't proving to be all that more cost effective to have compute in the cloud as a service than it is to have on-prem. But even if the cost differential is a little more one way or a little more the other way, there's this idea of who owns your data, where is your data, where are things being stored, and there are some significant verticals, as you point out, in the federal government, in healthcare, in some other industries that really want to see the repatriation of this data. They really want to go back to keeping it. And we're not just talking video and rich media, we're talking everything. But in our space, UC, we're talking organizations that really want to keep some of this communication capability in their own data centers or in private clouds that are just there for them. And I see it as a growing trend. I mean, I'm assuming that's what you're seeing from your perspective as well.
No question. So, cloud compute, I can't say enough about what cloud computing, and a lot of it had to do with what I mentioned a moment ago regarding technological changes. But cloud computing has significantly enhanced everything we're doing. However, one of the things that has happened too is that it's become increasingly cost effective for private corporations, companies, governments, entities of any scale, really, to take advantage of those benefits, but not necessarily in a public cloud fashion, right? So, I mean, there's some financial institutions we all know. You and I both know them well. Probably everyone has one of their credit cards in their pocket. If you have the word cloud in your URL, they cannot go to that URL from their internal VPN, right? So there's pluses and minuses, but to your point, we find the market wanting, not exclusively, of course, because there's a lot of technology, a lot of solutions that are not super private or highly secure. So those are fine in the overall public cloud. This conversation, as important it is to you and I, it's fine, right? It doesn't have to be highly secure. In fact, just the opposite. But there are applications which require privacy and security. And so all of the advancements in cloud computing have allowed corporations, organizations, I should say more generally, to bring it on net. And I prefer to use the term on net as opposed to on-prem, because it might be on bare metal, it might not, it might be in some VM and environment that organization has. It might be in their own, as you just said, private cloud. And I think that's really where it's become so cost effective because of the advancements there, that you now have that option. And yes, we're focused very much. We're in a unified collaboration space, and you might say, well, how's a company of Compunetix and Course Call size, whatever, 600 or just under 600 employees globally, how is it that you compete with Teams or Zoom or WebEx or whomever? And we don't, right? RingCentral, that's not our interest. We're focused very heavily on using that technology in very specific use cases and workflows. Yes, verticals like the federal government, where they insist in many instances to have it on net in a private environment. In fact, isolated completely from the internet in many instances. But also, I just mentioned large financial institutions. We have a large client with a very large bank, 300,000+ employees, that use Teams day in, day out, but they're using our technology in their data centers literally for their CEO and chairman and his top 600 executives to do private, secure, encrypted calls, right? Voice, video, data calls that are needed to run the business day in, day out. And it's not just the security, right? It's the reliability and quality, because this is a mission critical application. You can't not have a successful, corporate merger discussion with top CEOs and have a system that fails on them. So that's another important aspect of what we do.
I remember when I was working in the financial services industry in the early 2000s, that while we were moving video and voice collaboration services out to the cloud, the board of directors, as they were talking about mergers and acquisitions, of which, as you recall, there were quite a few at the time, would only do it on a bridge that was located under one of the technicians' desks. Because they knocked everything out of the data centers. They weren't doing anything anymore, but they kept that one for those types of secure calls. And I'll never forget, security is a funny business. It really makes no sense putting a big bar on the front door if you leave the back door and back windows wide open. So they were doing these secure calls on the secure encrypted server, but people were calling in from their cell phones. So it's always an interesting thing. But you're right, there is this feeling, certainly in financial services, and as I said, in a few others, healthcare, with certain compliance things that need to be around there, and a few other verticals, that this need for either as you call it, on net or private cloud, isn't going away and is in fact growing.
It certainly is growing. But again, I'll credit cloud computing for enabling that, right? So yes, of course, there's there's high volumes of public cloud applications, because again, day in, day out, most of what we're doing doesn't require high security, but that is allowed and now enabled organizations to bring it, make it a private cloud for those important meetings.
Okay, so now that we've come out of this pandemic, I can finally start reporting about that. I'm only still wearing masks on airplanes now. I've stopped even wearing it in the grocery store. In the airplane, I'm going to keep wearing it because it's a metal tube for 3 hours. But oh no, you're in Pittsburgh. That's an hour, right, for me. So anyway, the
Or a lot of the flights I'm on are 14 hours. So yeah,
oh well, there you go. Yeah. Well, I wasn't talking New Jersey to Pittsburgh. You're going other places for 14 hours, or it's a really bad delay. Um,
clearly.
so what is the, what are your predictions for the next, 5 years for Compunetix, for our industry? I mean, you don't have to spend an hour on it, but where are you gearing up? What are you looking at in terms of what people should be ready for, and why should organizations be reaching out to you to get help with some of what they're doing?
So for so yeah, we could spend, I
More
hope
time than we want to.
more time than we have in that conversation. So for in general, I mean, clearly you and I bumped into each other down at Enterprise Connect, and you know, AI is everywhere and prevalent, and that's going to continue to grow, and it's providing tremendous benefits. And pros and cons, like any technology, as it's understood and as it's deployed, and dealing with the challenges there. Sure, we're not inventing new ways to do these things, but we are leveraging those techniques. And when it comes to natural language and transcriptions and searching and things of that nature, so we're building in the, as you pointed out, we're focused more on these vertical markets, right? So government, finance, healthcare, and we're building our UC technology into the workflow, into the use cases, tightly integrating with our customers' needs. We have a couple of primary products. One, going forward is a product which is literally being launched this week. It's been in the market now for some time, but we're sort of doing the major launch, called Connect Now Plus, which is a general purpose UC platform, but again, targeted in a brandable, very integrated way into customer use cases and workflows. Similarly, we have what we call Video Contact Center application, VCC, and that's, again, both of these products are 100% software. So we've moved away from those media server technologies, and that product is focused as this sort of a customer's virtual, or a company's virtual front door. And again, we're not trying to compete with other, with Genesis and RingCentral in terms of those types of platforms, but instead we're building it in to unique applications. So what we're doing is we're focused where we have always been focused, and that is highly secure communications, right? So we do a lot in terms of encryption. We do things, we're trying to, security has become increasingly important. Multi-factor authentication is increasingly used, but it's a hassle, right? So how do we find ways to have a highly secure experience, both from a customer experience perspective and from an organizational perspective, knowing that you have protected information in meetings, without it being burdensome, that we deal with every day, the necessary evils that we deal with. So, so that's one area from Compunetix point of view, is where we're focusing more time. Some of that is out of necessity for some of those three-letter acronym organizations that we work for, sure. So that's important. And then, as you pointed out, hybrid collaboration, where it's not, pandemic's over, but we're going to have people working from home for forever. And, that will require, changes into what we're doing to try to accommodate them, have more equity in those meetings, try to have people involved in those, not just meetings, but in the call center space, having them engaged more, as if they're there. So we're focused on, just workflow and productivity tools that are going to help to integrate that experience. Everything we do is we're very much fundamentally an engineering company behind the scenes, right? So that enables us to be capable of and willing to tailor these applications for these verticals. And so APIs play a really important role there. And so we're continuing to sort of, I hate to use the word customize, but we're continuing to build out the APIs. Twilio made a decision to move away from video, right? You probably know that, right? But that's certainly opened up some opportunities for us to to help some of those very unique applications where they were using strictly an API-driven engine to build some capabilities in. So those are a couple of ideas. Yeah.
Sure. And you know, I go back to the point you made a minute or so ago about the burdensome nature of typical security. It's really a fascinating, it's been for decades been a very fascinating thing in enterprises and organizations where end users want to do the right thing. They want to be secure, but when we make the security so onerous that it's so difficult, that's when you're forcing people to use non-secure solutions.
Right.
I'll never forget, you know, when I was working in banks and you're trying to get something on a website and you can't, so you pick up your phone and you go to the window and you do it anyway. That means that the security teams haven't partnered with the operational teams to make them understand why they have to be compliant and give them ways of being compliant without upsetting their workflow. And it's that level of partnership that's rare, and I'm glad that you guys bring that to the table for your customers. So that is one of the most important points we've made today.
Good.
So Jerry, how can people find out more about Compunetix, and how can people reach out to you if they would like to?
Oh yeah, well, you know, our website is compunetix.com, Compunetix, and you know, myself. I mean, feel free to send me an email. You know, we are, as I said, you know, the businesses that we're in. Voice, video, web collaboration products and solutions for both commercial and federal government. Well, not just federal government. We're doing a lot with state government, quasi-government, you know, airport authorities, utilities, railroads. But you know, so basically, mission-oriented collaboration is really key for the focus we have there. General purpose services. We're really one of the remaining leaders in the investor relations AGM market through our course call organization, shareholder meetings, you know, where this hybrid work environment is necessary now. And then we are also in that manufacturing element, which sort of unrelated to this conversation, but that's been an important part of the overall company.
Okay, terrific. Well, I will ask my viewers if they have any information or interest and want to reach out to you and get information. They should feel free to do that. Thank you for joining us this week.
Well, David, thanks for the opportunity. I really appreciate it. Look forward to working with you more.
Yeah, we'll see you soon. We'll definitely see you at Infocom. And
one of the other things about me I didn't mention is I'm a proud board member of the IMCCA, which I know is close to near and dear to your heart. So I look forward to continuing to work with you there.
Yeah, there you go. It's always I'm a big believer that all boats rise with the tide. So we do our best in the industry to make sure that everybody understands how collaboration and communications work. So again, Jerry, thanks very much.
Thank you, David.
Again, thank you very much for watching this week. We really do appreciate it. On next week's show, I'm going to have a wonderful panel of guests. We're going to be talking about diversity in the unified communication and AV spaces. I hope you'll join us for that, because it's an important topic to get into and really explore just a little bit. But until then, I'm your host, David Danto. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week.